Welcome to Unsung Heroes Live. Life's biggest questions are answered through intimate conversations with people just like you who've risen above life's challenges and desire to share their knowledge to help others. I am your host, Kristie Knights. So welcome to Unsung Heroes Live podcast. Today I am joined with an amazing guy, and let me share with you just how incredible Ken is in my life and what he has done for others. And then we're going to spend the next half hour, 45 minutes, just getting to know him and seeing what he can do to support and help you grow in your journey through the experience of his own journey. So what he has shared with me is that as far back as he can remember, he's always been a really creative person. As quoted by him, my first true love was music. I'm a musician, songwriter, and a producer that has worked with many talented people over the years and released several commercial recordings. A brief stint hosting a CATV talk show evolved into creating and writing a couple of blogs. Writing my blogs led to my creating a one-man play and writing a book, both entitled You Are Here for Something Great, based on my life, thoughts, and philosophy. I truly believe in the awesome potential of all people. So today we welcome Ken. Ken, how are you doing today?
Awesome. Glad to be here.
It is wonderful to have you here. So that I don't butcher it, what's your last name? Say it for us.
It is Harj.
Harj. Very nice.
Just like large Harj.
There we go. That makes it nice and easy, right?
Yes.
So Ken, share with us a little bit about your journey to where you are today, specifically the struggles that you went through to make you the man that you are.
Okay. I talk a lot about my struggles in my life, my journey, in my play, in my book. I came from a household that was, I kind of call myself an emotional orphan. Both my parents were there. They're still together. So I had parents. I had a two-parent household, but I felt like emotionally I was alone, that I kind of raised myself. Okay. And that drove me to wanting to be a learner because I always felt lonely. I gravitated very early on to reading, and I've just always been a very voracious reader and learner. And so from there, I got into music as a kid. It was a way for me to express myself. We got a piano when I was in grade school, early on in grade school, and I took to it pretty early. And then I kind of fantasized that I'd be a music rock star. You know, that would be the way that people would love me. And so I was always reaching for something for people to love me. And eventually the music game runs its course when you get to be my age. And I went from wanting to be an actual artist to wanting to be a songwriter, producer, because you can be older and still do that. And then that ran its course. But the creativity of writing music always stuck with me. And from there, I learned to write like prose, for lack of a better word. I've always been very expressive. I've always been pretty good with words. Okay. And so, as you mentioned in my bio, I did a cable TV talk show.
That is so cool.
Because I've always had something to say. I've always been very opinionated. I thought this would be a good outlet. And I came in with like gangbusters, and I kind of went a little overboard, and some of my friends were like, Ken, you need to chill out a little bit. Okay. And so I took all their notes, so to speak, and went back to the drawing board, and I refined it, and eventually I found my voice and got to the point where I was getting really all good reviews. And from there, the work of it was really challenging because I was doing the editing and whatnot. And it was a half an hour show. I was writing a script for every show every week. Wow. And so my writing developed from there. And eventually I decided to start with the blogs. And I've always had this idea, almost like a fantasy of wanting to do a one-man play. I don't know where it came from. I was like, I want to do a one-man play. And it sat with me for a long time until finally I decided to do it.
Great.
Then I went from there to finally writing the script and learning how to write a script. And I gave it to a theatrical director that I knew. I knew her kind of casually, gave it to her, said, hey, check it out. She said, we'll check it out someday. It took her a year, literally, to get back to me. In the meantime, I showed it to a couple of friends who said it seems like it would be good as a book. And so waiting for the director, I started writing the book. And I found out that writing a play and a book are two extremely different things. My play was maybe 5,000 words. I researched novels and found out I needed to be around 80,000 words. So I knew I had to get into fictional characters and whatnot. I learned about narrative arcs and all that stuff. And so my book, I'm in the typesetting phase, which is almost done. And here I am talking to you.
That is awesome. What an incredible journey.
Hey.
So through all of that journey, can you talk about a time where you thought, gosh, is this going to work out?
I have, for some reason, in a way, it's almost odd because my background, and I don't say it like for people to feel sorry for me, but like I never had support at home.
Yeah.
My parents, they taught us certain things. They taught us certain values that I hold that are very important to me. But as far as support for any dreams, I never had it. But for some reason, even though like I couldn't express myself at home, like my parents were, especially my father, was the type like, you don't speak unless you're spoken to, that type of thing. Like he ruled the household with an iron fist. And so rather than being stymied, it made me more expressive. And so I became this person that couldn't be silenced. And I just reached and reached and reached. And I've never felt like I couldn't do something. I've never felt that. I've always, and one of the things, and I've talked about it in my book and my play, that my father was a hands-on kind of guy. We lived in a middle-class neighborhood. We weren't one of maybe 2 black families on the entire street. So, and that was very important to me. And I didn't know it then, but it turned out to be where I always felt equal. I never felt less than as a black man. And that's very substantial. And so my father, being the hands-on guy that he was, he never called contractors. He always figured out the plumbing, the electrical. I was the oldest. I had to help him. And from that, I always learned how to figure things out. And so from the time I was a kid, I can figure out anything from the video editing on my talk show. I'm a music producer with the computers and whatnot, building websites, writing a play, writing a book. I feel like there's just, I don't know why. I feel like I can do anything.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I can, anybody can.
Yeah. That is awesome. So what skills did you learn growing up that provided that foundation for you?
I think the most critical thing is learning how to figure out how to do things, learning how to think, because I can apply it to anything, like literally. And that's what got me to this point where I've done the things I have, because I can jump in, even doing, I'm doing the book design and the typesetting on my book. And as I get to each phase of this book or the play or whatever, I find out like, oh my God, like it's really, really detailed and really difficult. But I never think like, oh, I can't do it. I go in, I'll Google it, I'll figure it out, and I get this, I get that, and I figure it out. And I think that if people can remove those limitations from themselves and just be open to the possibility of figuring out, that you can always get to wherever you want to be. Like, and you learn that you start asking questions, and those questions lead to better questions, and those questions lead to even better questions, and that helps you zero in on the information you need. So I think it's just the willingness to jump off the cliff and know that somehow you're going to start flying before you hit the ground.
Yes, yes. And that's one thing I'm hearing through what you're sharing is that there wasn't a time where you just gave up, where
Nope.
you just said, throw in the towel, I'm done. So, can you talk to me about what characteristics do you have in your personality that have kept you going and not giving up, that's made you resilient despite the emotional neglect or disconnect you had growing up?
One is my pride.
Yes,
I
we
don't
all
want
got
to
some of
like. I'm
that.
not going to walk away with my tail between my legs. Like I'm not going to do that. And so I will find a way because my pride won't let me not find a way.
Yes.
And I think it's significant because like I'm a high school graduate, but I remember saying to a friend of mine once that who was she has a master's degree, and I was saying to her that I'm not highly educated. She said, "Yes, you are. You're just not formally educated." And
I love
so I feel like if I can do it, anybody can do it. You just have to be willing, and I guess that's another characteristic of being willing to try it and to not accept the first challenge as the end of the road. That there's a way to break through it. So that's what I do.
Yeah. So who taught you to believe in yourself?
I I'd have to say I taught my damn self.
Yes. Yes. How did
Somebody
you?
else taught me. I figured it out, and I think that as I had successes in different things, it showed me what I can do, and it's another teachable thing that once you jump off the cliff and find that you can get to the ground without dying, like maybe you broke a leg, but you learned that okay, I didn't die. That's a teachable moment. I didn't die, and so you learn how to maybe fly a little bit better and a little better and a little better. And so really being willing to jump in and figure it out, as simple as it sounds, is so powerful.
Yes. And I like what you said in terms of as simple as it sounds, because oftentimes our brains, we complicate everything. And so when we complicate everything, it increases anxiety and frustration, and it leads us to shut down. So
Yep.
sounds to me like you have this simple formula that works each time, that you're determined, your pride won't let you, and there's an element of self-talk that you say positive things to yourself. So can you share with us what that self-talk sounds like?
For me, it's reflecting back on the things I've done. Uh,
Good.
like I got into the cable TV thing,
Yeah.
uh, and I didn't know how to do it. I learned how to do video editing. I bought a Mac computer and I bought some software, and it was extremely difficult. And I figured it out. If I couldn't figure it out, I would Google it, and then I Google again, and I try and I try again, and I just would not accept that I could not do it. And it's not that I really think, as you said, like a lot of times things are simple. That is as simple as being willing to jump off the cliff and try it. And I think our survival instinct, even emotionally, mentally, will kick in, and that nobody wants to jump off the cliff and splatter on the ground.
Right.
We're afraid, and so we don't try. And if we're willing to jump, then we'll figure it out. And I've found that time and time and time again. And once you have a victory, even if I'm good at counting small victories, and that's important because you can build on them. And so, like if I go to the gym and maybe I didn't do a full workout, maybe I just did the elliptical for 20 minutes.
Mhm.
It's a victory. Or even before that, if I get out of the bed and put my gym clothes on, it's a victory. And then I get in my car, it's another victory. I walk in the building of the gym, it's another victory. It's the same thing with a lot of things. So I did the cable TV thing. I figured it out. I learned how to do video editing. And then I decided I wanted to do a blog. So you research what is a blog? And so you figure that out. And then you start writing. Then you get beat up. People tell you, oh, your writing is crappy. And so like I figure, okay, how do you figure out how to be a better writer? How do you refine your craft and go after more and more and more, and you build on little victories, a piece
Mhm.
at a time?
Yes, yes. Listing your accomplishments, remembering your accomplishments is very refueling. I'm working with a planner, the passion planner, actually. I'm using that for the first time this year. And one of the pages of every week, it says, what are the good things that have happened to you this week? And there's power in the ability to be able to look back at those things to help you rejuvenate for the next day, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So talk to me about your play. What was the inspiration for it? What's the shell of it? Give us a flavor for it.
The play, like I said, I had this idea. It was really an abstract idea. It was no more significant than someone saying, oh, I want to be a rock star. but it was always in the back of my mind. And then after I did the cable TV show, I had started doing some writing, and finally I was in a place where I said I want to try it, but I'd never written a play before. And so I just started writing, and me being who I am and reflecting on the prior victories and accomplishments, I just jumped in and started figuring how to do it. It was based on my life. And as I was proceeding with it, I started thinking about I need a title to kind of steer me. And I remembered that I had a website domain called You Are Here for Something Great. I have this habit, which I would recommend for anybody with any kind of inspirations. Whenever I get a bright idea, I will go and register the domain. I probably have 20, 25 of them. I had this thing, just the title years prior had come to me, You Are Here for Something Great. I looked it up. It was available. I bought the domain. It cost you $10. Cost you nothing. So, and I had it. And as I was starting to develop the play, it occurred to me, that's the title. That's it. And so that kind of gave me some direction. And so I decided that the vehicle for talking about my life in the play would be me aspiring to be a motivational speaker, which I've had some interest in, but that was the vehicle I used in. And so how the play opens up is I get this big opportunity to have this big keynote speech. The announcer calls me out and I can't go onto the stage. I'm frozen because I get up to a certain point and I stop, I quit, I lose interest. And so I decided that I need to look deeper and I needed to talk to someone. And so I talk to the audience as if they're my therapist. And so that's how I go through my life. And then toward the end, the only thing that's fictional is at the suggestion of my director, I got, she suggested that I play my father. I had him as a separate character coming in and telling me all these things I wanted to hear, which wasn't, it was fictional, but it was kind of inspired by one day I was coming home from work and I just literally started talking out loud to myself as my father. I'm a kind of dramatic person. And I'm a very, especially for a man like me, I'm a really emotional guy. And so I had like an hour drive home and I was saying all these things and I was crying all the way home. But I found when I got home, it was so cathartic to just hear those things, even though it was me saying them, to just hear them meant a lot to me. And that was one of the emotional, the high emotional points in the play was coming out as my father saying those things. And it was very, very, very well received. It was the best day of my life, literally. The support I got, the feedback I got, especially from men, which is kind of one of my hot buttons because men are so often unable to express their emotions, and in our culture in America doesn't support men being emotional.
Right.
So, and there's a cost to that. Like the reason in my mind why men abuse their women, why they harass women, why there's sexual abuse, why there's violence, all this stuff is because so often men haven't been taught how to deal with their emotion, how to express their emotions in an appropriate way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I am like the troubadour for like expressing my emotions. And the men that came to me after that play telling me, oh my God, like I went through that, like with my father. My father was a very abusive guy.
Yeah.
And they went through similar things, and the women who went through certain kinds of things. And it was really, really phenomenal. And I've said to a lot of people, and I recommend this to everybody listening, that even if you are the only person to ever read it, everybody should write their story. Like what you get out of it is, it may be the best gift you ever give to yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how long did it take you to gain the courage to write the play?
I know it sounds crazy. I didn't need any courage. I just fed off of everything I've done, and I did it. I've never had the thought in me that I can't do something. I just don't have it in me. So it's almost like the ignorant bliss of ignorance. Like, you know, I never figured out, like, oh my God, like a play and like, as far as theater, to do a one-man play is the hardest thing you can do. So I did it. And then the director loved it, even though it took her a year to get back to me. And then she decided, and it was a veteran theater director, and she came in and she beat the crap out of me in like a creative way. We wound up cutting 45 minutes from the script that I gave her. Like she's slashing all the fat and this and that. Yeah. And then after we went through that, I had to memorize an hour and a half script. And so like most actors have never had to do that, like accomplished actors. And so I jumped in and I figured it out. And I think the thing that all your listeners can take away from this is that you can do it if you believe that you can. It sounds so cliche and simple, but if you jump in and you go after it, you can do anything. So I feel like I can do anything. I can do anything. You'd be hard pressed to hit me with something that I feel like I can't do. I might not be able to do it right now, but I'll figure it out.
Right. Oh, that is great. I love that level of confidence. Was there a time in that waiting period for the director to get back to you that you questioned? I mean, a year is a long time.
Yes, it was. I had literally just decided I'm going to leave it to the universe. It is what it is. Okay. And then I started writing the book.
Yes.
As I was writing the book, I remember I was at a festival in downtown Waterbury, Connecticut, where I'm at. And it was nighttime. We're all out in our lawn chairs enjoying the music. And I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. And it was the director. She said, oh my God, like, I love your script. I'd like to talk to you about potentially working with you. And so we started that process. And
how did you feel when you got that phone call?
It was thrilling. It was really, really thrilling. Yeah. And so I jumped in with both feet, and she beat me up really good. And I think I was in the right space and time for it, because, you know, it's hard to have your work torn apart.
Oh, absolutely.
And, but I think I was ready for that.
Okay.
And but as far as like intimidation or wondering if I could do it, there was never a question in my mind if I could do it. Yeah. And I just leveraged that. I leveraged one thing to the next thing. So I went from that to the book, which I finished. And then I went through the edit process of that, which is another thing that can destroy a lot of writers, that it's a hard process to have every other paragraph torn apart by an editor. But I went through it. I decided I'm not going to be defeated, went through that. And now I'm doing the book design part because, you know, I can't afford to hire somebody. So I'm doing it. Yeah. And now it's actually to the point of where I feel like I am going to conquer this thing. So at this point, even if I could afford to pay somebody, I'm going to do it. Absolutely. And so I'll build on that. And from that, I wrote another play. It's completed. I've given the director the second revision. I hope that she's going to take it on. If not, I'm going to produce it. I never produced a play, but it's going to hit the stage one way or another. It has a cast. It's a comedy. There's songs. I'm a musician anyway, so writing songs is not an issue for me. But
That is awesome. I love your energy. I can just feel it sitting here.
Yes.
It's like, oh my gosh, you've got so much going. I love it.
Yes.
So your journey from whether we're talking about when you were younger until now, was there a time where you began to struggle with any mental health concerns, whether it was anxiety or depression or?
I have, in fact, as I mentioned before we came on air, just today I wrote a pretty detailed post on Facebook. Part of my therapy is writing. I'm a very open guy, especially for a man. I for whatever reason, I very easily talk about my feelings. It's just how I am.
Yes.
And so I've dealt with depression quite a bit.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
throughout my life, and for some, I managed to always hang in there. But just today I was feeling some kind of way, and so I know I had to write about it. And there's times that I felt like I don't want to be here anymore, but
Yeah.
I have this thing in the name of my play. You are here for something great. I believe we all are, and it's different things for different people. And I think my thing is expressing to people that they are here for something great, and giving words to people who don't have the words. Words come easily to me, but I know that a lot of people, and especially a lot of men, don't have the emotional vocabulary to say, I feel hurt today. I feel sad today. But I do it easily. And I think reaching out to those people, which I've done a number of times, is why I'm here, is to give words to those people that my story, my struggle, and I don't just dump stuff on people. I always have a positive way of resolving things when I write anything. There's times that I've written literally crying in the dark, and I always find a way to make something out of it so that people can say, oh my God, I feel that way. And I'm not alone. And that's what sustains me.
Great, great. Can you share with us what are some of your triggers that you have found across the years for your depression?
Being alone.
Okay.
I've been single for years.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm a good guy.
Yes.
People tell me I'm a good guy. I have a lot to offer. And I've had a bunch of relationships in the past. It's not like I've never been in a relationship.
Right.
I've been in a bunch of relationships, but they've never worked out. I was married for 8 years, but it was a really, really hard marriage.
Okay.
But being alone, I think, is the thing for me. And I was thinking today, I'm on the job. The tile job was challenging.
Okay.
And I was thinking, like, I make a very good living, but I work and I go home alone every day for weeks and months and years, literally. And I'm usually pretty good with like hanging in there, and you kind of get used to,
Sure.
I think we can get used to anything over time.
Yeah.
But every now and then, like, it strikes me like, oh my God, like, you do all this stuff. Like, I do phenomenal things, and it's all by myself. And it hit me, like, it was sad to me. Yeah. That, I'm in this journey. I have friends, but, my friends are married or they're in relationships. I can't talk to them at 2:00 in the morning. And when I go home, even with the friends, when I go home alone. Yeah. And so it's the loneliness is what's my biggest trigger. And the other thing I think is that, I have an estranged relationship from both my parents. I originally started, I haven't had a conversation with my father in probably 15 years.
Wow.
And my mother, more recently, maybe the last several years, stopped talking to me. I used to be a Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
And got kicked out. So she stopped speaking to me. And so, like, I have no relation. It's that being an emotional orphan again.
Right.
I don't have parents that care for me, or don't show that they care for me. And as far as I'm concerned, if they don't show it, it's not there. They have other priorities, and I've learned to cope with it
Mm-hmm.
to a certain extent, but every now and then, it gets heavy,
Yeah.
and so I let it out of me, which I think is what literally saves my life. Literally, that I don't hold on to anything. I get it out of me. I'll write a song about it. I'll write a blog about it. I'll say things on Facebook, personal expressions that people might wonder, oh my God, like, why is he sharing this? And I'm sharing it because I wouldn't be here otherwise. And I've had people who will send me private messages that thank me for sharing it. And so that's my thing.
Yeah. So that, like you had said, writing is so cathartic, and just being able to share it. So whenever the depression sets in, releasing. And
Yep.
then typically, how long does it take you to come back up from that?
If I write about it, I will feel better right after I hit enter on the computer. I'm not saying it's completely gone, but I will feel better for sure soon as I hit enter. And so again, like building on past victories, I know that that's my therapy. I know what's going to happen if I start writing, that I'm going to feel better after I do it. And I do all the time. And so I can do.
I am sure in our audience there are many others who have estranged relationships, whether it's from parents or siblings. What words do you have for them to be able to cope with that pain, that loss?
I think you have to get it out of you. I think that you can't hold on to it. So often people, and again, especially men, not only men, but especially men, hold on to their feelings, and it will kill you if you don't get it out of you. And so you have to get it out of you, and you will find that just releasing it out of you is healing. And there will be people who, it's easy when you hold on to your feelings to think that you're the only one on the planet with those feelings.
Right.
And when you release them and let it out, you find out you're not the only one. And that helps you make it to another day.
Yes. As a man, what are some of the myths about depression and men?
That we don't get it is one myth.
Absolutely.
And it angers me when people say things like, oh, men shouldn't cry, or boys shouldn't cry. It's the most ignorant, stupid thing. And I think it's one of the most hurtful things to our society, that men are not, it's not, excuse me, there's a big thing in America now about, Me Too and Time's Up and the whole thing with women, which is completely legitimate for sure. And God bless, I'm all behind women standing up for that. But with that, the thing that doesn't get nearly, it almost gets no attention whatsoever, is that it's not safe for men to express all their emotions. It's not safe in America. You'll be looked down on by men who think you're being a woman, or you'll be looked down by women who think you're being a woman. It's not safe, and I feel like that has to change. That it has to be okay for a man to say that you hurt my feelings.
Yes.
Or that I'm hurting today. I feel like shit today.
Yeah. And I think so much of the depression for men is that repression of emotions,
Yes.
is that stuffing of emotion, because it isn't safe
Yep.
to express it. And, behind closed doors, women are cheering for it. We want it, and, we beg for our husbands to express it, or our partners to express it. And then when they do, they're shamed somehow.
Yes. Yep.
And so this vicious cycle continues. So I applaud you in your voice. I applaud you for speaking on behalf of men, because I don't know who better to do it than another man.
It has to be, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do it with no apologies. I do it often, and I will continue to do so. I don't feel like I have to, again, I don't feel like I have to apologize for it. I do it so that other men can feel like they can do it.
Yes. So what are some of the common roadblocks you have found for men to be able to express their feelings besides society?
I think that when it comes to women, that too often, I won't try to put a number on it, but
Sure.
too often women are attracted to like the alpha kind of guy.
Yes.
And I've given
The badass dude.
tons of thoughts. Yes, I've thought about it. And I almost think that it's almost hardwired, like in the animal kingdom, where it's the alpha that gets the mate. And so it's a thing of survival. And I think that a lot of times some women don't even think about it. They just automatically respond to the guy who's the big badass,
Right.
who has all the flashy things to say, who has the flashy look and all that stuff. And he's the one that gets their attention more than the guy who's more cerebral, who's more subtle,
Yes.
who's more substantive, but he doesn't have the flashy things to say. He's not always telling her what she wants to hear, and those kind of things that the guys that get the women do all the time. And I think because you can plainly see the guys that get women, other men see that and they aspire to get women. We're all driven by that. And so I think that's a big thing, is seeing what so many men are successful with, and you want to be that.
Yeah.
Hey, like I'm such an odd person in that way. Like I don't want to, I want to be in a relationship, but I don't want to be a flashy dude.
Yes.
You know, I don't want to be, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear just because, you'll get with me.
Right.
I want to tell you the truth. And it's hard sometimes.
Yeah. I have a client that I've worked with for years, and he is one of my favorites. He's in his early 30s, and each time I see him, he says to me, "I just don't get women. Like, nice guys finish last. I don't get it. Do I have to be a total asshole in order to get somebody? That's just not who I am. If that's what it means, then I can't do it. I just can't do it." And so that loneliness just engulfs him night after night after night, and the rejection. Just the rejection. He had shared an example with me that he was at a nightclub one time, and he went to go to use the restroom, and he went into the men's restroom, and there was a line of women waiting to get into the men's because the women's restroom was so backed up. And one of the women said to him, "What are you doing here? We're using this restroom." And he was baffled. He's like, "It's the men's bathroom. I should be allowed to use the men's bathroom." He goes, "But I was polite and kind and said, 'No problem, no big deal,' and walked away." But I think there's such confusion, especially our younger generations, about roles for men and women right now.
Yep, there is. Yep.
Yeah. So share with me. You've got so much wisdom. Share with me, if you were to write a thank you letter to somebody, who would it be and why?
I wrote, like I said, I'm in the typesetting or book design phase of my book. And one of the pages I wrote recently was Acknowledgements. And so I thanked one of the people and I debated whether I would do it, a friend of mine that we dated, a woman we dated for a while. And then we broke up, but we stayed friends for a long time. I think she would have been more comfortable having a clean break, but I kind of wanted to, I didn't see why we couldn't be friends. So I kind of persuaded her, I guess. And that eventually ran its course to where we finally, after being broken up from dating, after maybe 6, 7, 8 years, finally broke up. So we don't speak anymore.
Wow.
She, however, was very significant in my evolution as a writer. She's the person I said was a master's degree, highly educated, very smart, smarter than me. And so I always wonder, she kept me on my toes. And she was the first person to tell me that I was a great writer. And so I debated, should I put her in there? And I decided to do that and thanked her for that and let her know that I always wanted to impress her and that I hope that I have. And that was probably the most substantial one. I have some friends that I thanked in there, but I think thanking her and acknowledging her at this point in time was like an opportunity of growth for me.
Yes.
To be able to see that and be grateful for it and not have to want more out of it than what it is. Like the relationship served its purpose, I guess. And now we've both moved on.
So if you were able to give your younger self some words of wisdom, what would you say?
Save money.
Amen.
Pay your bills on time. And I think I would have taken even more chances with going after my dreams. I've done a lot of things and I'm doing things. I have major things on my plate right now. But I think being willing to like quit my job, like save up $2,000 and quit my job and like test myself to see if, do you really believe it? Do you really believe the stuff you talk about? I think it would have been easier as a younger man than it is now that I have more responsibilities, but to be willing to bet on yourself.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Bet on yourself.
Yeah.
Good. So what is that thing on your plate right now that brings the passion to the surface?
I have no shortage of that. There's the book. Yes. And I've decided sometime in the springtime, I'm going to do another performance of my play and the book as one event, as a book release and another performance of the play, because a lot of people that wanted to see it didn't get to see it.
I love it.
I've done some, or I'm doing some revisions to the play, notes from the director that, you could tweak this, tweak that.
Yes.
There's that.
What is the name of the book and what is the projected date for publication?
It's You Are Here for Something Great. It's the same name as the play. I'm shooting at springtime. I know I need to narrow it down more.
Yes.
I'm not so good at that, so maybe that's something I could tell myself to do to a set dates. I have the next play, which is called Pitchy Harmony, which is in its second revision. It's comedy about dating.
Oh, I love it.
I always get a kick out of it when I say it.
Yes.
And a lot of my experiences and things I've talked to friends about, men and women. Yes. I'm hoping I could get that in production this year.
Great.
I also just recently did a music score for a short film, which is something that was on my bucket list. And the director is extremely happy. I saw a rough draft of the film with the score. That's thrilling. So looking at that coming out pretty soon. And I'm working on, I want to say an album, but I'm not sure if I'll have time to do a full album this year of songs. Probably more as a songwriter, producer, and a couple of songs I'll sing. Oh,
that's awesome. So you sing too?
Yes. Hey, I I do. I think sometimes people think I'm joking when I tell them the things I do. Like I do a lot.
It's amazing. That's the entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Yes.
Always something.
Yep. I also want to do a forum on racism. I've been involved in this group uh, called Project Clearwater.
Okay.
And how it came about is I wrote an article for a local newspaper, and actually he saw an article in my blog and he messaged me and said he wanted to publish in the paper. I was like, awesome.
Wow.
So we did that, and so I decided to ask him if I could write an article specifically for the paper, and so he was down for that, and he wanted me to give him a couple of topics, so that because he's a writer too, and he didn't want us to cover the same things. I gave him a few. One of them was how to improve inner cities, and he thought that's the one. So I started writing that. I asked him how long should it be. He told me I could make it as long as I want because it's that important. And so I started writing it. In the city I'm from, Waterbury, Connecticut, has a nickname called the Dirty Water, which I've always thought was ignorant. I never called it that, but a lot of, especially more younger people. And as I was writing the article, I thought we should start like a project, like a Manhattan type project to make Waterbury awesome. And rather than call it Dirty Water, we'll call it Project Clearwater. Huh. And so
nice.
I wrote the article. He flipped over the article. It was a 3,000 word article. And he said, we should do this Project Clearwater. I was like, holy shit. I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to write about it. But it's like the universe saying, if you believe this, then you need to do something about it. So I had to. So we started this thing. We've done a lot of civic things in Waterbury.
Okay.
Then, so through Project Clearwater, I've always had this issue. Well, I've had this thing about race and that we need to have this conversation. But it's a hard conversation. But I don't shy away from hard conversations. And so I hit up the publisher of the paper, who's part of Project Clearwater. What do you think we have for him? And anytime I mentioned it to somebody, they're like, oh my God, like, oh, I don't know. And so he wants to be a part of it. And so we're working out the framework. So we're hoping that's going to happen this year as well. So, a couple little things like that.
Just a couple little things, nothing big. Now, do you anticipate Project Clearwater becoming a nonprofit?
We talked about that, but I think that, and I think I'm more than there's two other men that are co-founders who are more inclined to go toward nonprofits. I'm more inclined to think that we don't need to do that. Like it might be more of an encumbrance right now because of all the paperwork and whatnot.
Sure.
And that I almost think that if we start raising a lot of money, that can be a burden. That there's a lot of things we could do that really don't require money. It just requires some manpower. And so I'm more inclined to go without being a nonprofit. Sure. At least for the time being.
Yeah, you have so much onto your horizon. And I want to make sure that our listeners know how they can get in contact with you to be able to see all these great things. And, really, you're going to be touching lives. And I mean, you've been, but just sharing your life story. And I know you said that you didn't need the courage to do it. You just did it. But so many people, it's hard to tell their story. So you will inspire so many to own their story and share it. So what is your website?
I have a couple of websites. My blog is the Mind of KLH.com. KLH are my initials. A lot of people call me that, especially in the music business. And so there's that. There is youarehereforsomething.great.com. Okay. Which is, it has a 5-minute trailer from the play so you could get to see what the play is about.
That is awesome.
Once I get the book release date, it'll be on that site as well.
Perfect.
Those are the primary ways to see what I'm about.
Great, great, good, very good. So if you were to give a last bit of advice, your tagline advice, what would you say to our audience before we wrap up?
Be willing to try it out. You know what? Let me scratch that. Be willing to, as I mentioned before, bet on yourself and jump in and do it. Trying something can sometimes be self-defeating. You know, if you try it, maybe you don't succeed at it, drop that. Believe in yourself, bet on yourself, and jump off the cliff and do it. And you'll find that no matter, there's a guy named Michael Neal, who's he's a writer, motivator, whatnot. He said that all you could ever do is the next step. And I found that very profound. So literally, no matter what it is, if you wanted to build a spaceship to go to Mars, literally all you could ever do is the next step. And anybody can do the next step. Anybody. So don't limit yourself. Don't doubt yourself. Know that you can do the next step. You can buy a book. You could do a Google search. You could ask somebody's advice. You could ask for a phone number. You could ask a person a question. You could always do the next thing. And then after that, you do the next thing, and then the next thing. And before you know it, you landed on Mars.
Yes, yes. Well, Ken, thank you so much for being here. And thank you. Yes, it has been such a pleasure. And, you know, we have been talking with Ken Harge, and he is from Connecticut, and amazing guy. Go to his website to check out what he has been doing. The two websites are the mindofklh.com, as well as you'rehereforsomething.great.com, where there is a trailer that you can watch the play, and take that time just to connect with him, because I know that his journey has been one step at a time, and he will inspire you to take one step at a time.
Thank you for joining this episode of Unsung Heroes Live. Each week, we highlight a hero who has created a life of joy and peace despite the challenges. Through their transparency, life's biggest questions are answered. For additional resources and community support, go to uncallcounseling.com. Register today as a member of this incredible tribe. Until next time, I'm your host, Kristie Knights. Be real, be raw, just be the hero that you are.